Like, how did you approach this?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things when you're elected to the Senate, and I'm a pretty young guy. I think I'm the second youngest United States senator right now. You certainly think, like, is this something I might do in the future? What does this look like? What would you need to do in terms of getting your family in the right mental space and just making it happen?
Joe Rogan leans forward in his studio chair, eyes wide, voice pitching higher with every syllable. He isn't joking. He isn't hedging. He's flat out accusing Barack Obama of pulling off what he calls one of the most devious political deceptions in modern memory. Across the country, on a Senate dais, J.D. Vance is pounding the table in his own way, throwing verbal grenades at the former president, painting him less as a leader and more as a carefully crafted illusion built by unseen hands. The tone is scorched earth, the timing explosive. We're not watching another round of partisan bickering. We're witnessing two firebrands ripping the wrapping off Obama's carefully protected legacy and asking out loud whether the story America was sold about its 44th president was ever real at all.
Good, man. How are you doing?
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
What is it like running for vice president of the United States? How crazy is this experience?
It's pretty weird.
The montage practically plays itself. Rogan shaking his head, half in disbelief, half in fury, demanding to know how millions of voters could have been swept into what he suggests was a long con. Vance, crisp in his delivery, goes further, suggesting Obama may not have even been steering the wheel during his own presidency. To Vance, it wasn't just missteps or misjudgments, it was the possibility of a presidency outsourced to shadowy insiders, a puppet performance sold as hope and change. The language is blunt, the implication devastating. Maybe the most celebrated political figure of our lifetime wasn't really in charge. And the crowd, they're listening. The gasps, the applause, the crackle of controversy, it's oxygen for this fire. We rewind for a moment, back to the evidence Rogan and Vance lean on. Enter Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's spy chief, who just dropped files claiming the Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence about Russian interference. On paper, the memos look like dry bureaucratic chatter, but Rogan seizes on them as smoking guns, pointing to lines that admit Russian hackers were unlikely to change votes directly. Vance echoes the same theme. If the official record didn't back up the louder claims of collusion, then who was pulling the strings to make sure the narrative stuck? Manufactured, politicized, coup. Words that should never sit in the same sentence as a presidency now hang in the air, daring anyone to deny them. But the real sting isn't the accusation itself, it's the suggestion that this was all part of a bigger operation, a fortress built around Obama to protect him at all costs. That's when the story shifts from policy failures to personal cover-ups. We're told his closest advisors weren't just strategists, they were gatekeepers, bending reality, scrubbing inconvenient truths, and locking away anything that might tarnish the golden image. Classified emails vanish, memos are sanitized, aides whisper in closed rooms about keeping the brand intact. To critics like Rogan and Vance, this wasn't the usual White House spin. It was a full-blown culture of concealment.
That's why I can speak with impunity about the Illuminati, because I know who you would have to be in order for what I'm saying to bother you, number one.
Right.
Number two, I know your big secret. I know that you're not the Illuminati, I am. So.
And then comes the whisper that makes the crowd lean in closer. The elephant in the room, Obama's so-called shadow homosexual romance. A rumor long dismissed as fringe chatter, now being hinted at again by critics who know better than to say it outright, but let their silences do the talking. We can almost hear it between Rogan's pauses, feel it in the half-smiles of Vance. Could this explain why the inner circle went into overdrive to shield Obama? Could the carefully curated family man narrative have been built, at least in part, to keep a much more complicated personal story hidden from public view? The very suggestion adds a new layer of intrigue. Suddenly, it's not just about memos and intelligence reports, it's about secrets that cut to the heart of identity and legacy. This is where the whispers collide with an older, darker controversy, one that refuses to fade no matter how many times it's dismissed. Joan Rivers, months before her tragic collapse during what was supposed to be a routine procedure, bluntly told a reporter, "We already have a homosexual president, it's Obama. You know Michelle is transgender." It was classic Rivers, sharp, outrageous, and impossible to ignore. Weeks later, she was gone, and the internet lit up with conspiracies suggesting her bluntness had sealed her fate. To this day, some believe she strayed too close to a dangerous truth. And the timing of her sudden passing only deepened the suspicion. What Rogan and Vance have cracked open now feels eerily parallel. The timing, the whispers, the insiders working overtime to protect the image, it's all too neat, too convenient for skeptics to let go. If Rivers' comments back then were brushed off as comedy, they're now being reframed as warning shots, hints that what she said out loud was what others only dared to whisper. The alleged suppression of evidence, the silenced voices, the dossiers that contradict themselves, it all folds into a narrative that refuses to be buried. And that's where the story turns chilling. Because when we stack Rogan's fiery disbelief against Vance's damning speculation, then overlay it with the Joan Rivers conspiracy, we're staring at a pattern that's impossible to ignore. We've got manufactured intelligence, tightly controlled advisors, rumors of secret romances, and a comedian who called it like she saw it, then was gone before she could clarify. The pattern points not to random coincidence, but to something orchestrated, deliberate, and still carefully hidden.
Have you heard the rumor that Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston had an affair that ended his marriage? People that I respect, some that I even love, who may or may not watch this show.
But that's not the full picture. As Rogan and Vance push their assault into the mainstream, the echoes grow louder. Online forums dig up old clips of Rivers, interviews with questionable insiders like Larry Sinclair, even whispers of Hollywood connections that reach as far as Jennifer Aniston. The result is a swirl of speculation where fact, rumor, and conspiracy blur together, creating a storm Obama's carefully polished legacy may no longer withstand.
Because, okay, let's take Barack, for example. You still take my breath away. How?
Right.
With your anger? With your complete inability to just get with the program and show up?
At the inauguration, so I have to walk in like a lonely soldier.
And the cliffhanger is impossible to ignore. As we dig deeper into this fallout, the eerie parallels between Joan Rivers' sudden demise and the mystery surrounding Obama's past raise questions too dangerous to leave hanging. Is there a link between what Rivers said and what happened to her just weeks later? If so, what exactly are they hiding? And more importantly, who's still pulling the strings to keep it buried? Joan Rivers' final weeks are frozen in the public imagination like a crime scene photo that refuses to fade. She had walked out of a bookstore, cameras in her face, and when asked if America would ever have a homosexual or female president, she didn't blink. "We already have a homosexual president, it's Obama," she said with that trademark smirk, before tossing in the line that would ripple through gossip circles for years. "You know, Michelle is transgender." For Rivers, it was another outrageous punchline, but for others, it was a landmine. Just weeks later, she went in for what was supposed to be a simple throat procedure. Hours later, she was in a coma. By September, she was gone. The official report blamed a series of medical blunders. Wrong anesthetic dosage, ignored vital signs, procedures done without written consent, but conspiracy theorists have never bought the coincidence. Could her brutal honesty about the Obamas have marked her as someone who knew too much?
I mean, that's what people were saying, and maybe everybody's a conspiracy theorist now, but that's what people were saying about the Diddy situation. Like when the feds rolled up, with the Hummers and shit, they were like, it wasn't about Diddy, it was about if there were tapes of powerful people there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
They were the ones that called. They're like, I need to protect myself, so go in there with all the things and rip any tapes or any evidence.
The timeline is chilling when laid bare. 1 month she makes the comment, the next she's fighting for breath. Investigators said malpractice, fans said sabotage, and a new wave of online voices now link those events directly to the very narrative Rogan and Vance are spotlighting. That Obama's carefully constructed public image was never to be questioned, never to be punctured, no matter who got hurt in the process. Alex Jones, never shy about feeding the fire, even claimed Rivers was silenced because she was too close to the truth. If her remarks were just comedy, why did her sudden collapse spark so much suspicion? And why, years later, does the unease only grow stronger? We have to remember Joan Rivers wasn't some obscure figure shouting in the dark. She was a cultural institution. She could walk down a street in New York and command more attention than half of Congress combined. When she cracked a joke, it landed everywhere. Tabloids, morning shows, late-night chatter. That kind of platform made her both untouchable and, perhaps, dangerous. If she had chosen to push further, to elaborate beyond the off-the-cuff joke, could she have triggered the kind of scandal Obama's team was desperate to avoid? That's the question conspiracy watchers keep asking, and it feeds perfectly into Rogan's portrayal of Obama as a man shielded by layers of protectors and image managers.
So the truth about Jen and Barack is that there is no truth.
There is
it
no
is
truth.
Untrue. You know Barack Obama.
I've met him once.
Met him once.
I know Michelle more than him.
What is there a truth about you and Michelle that we should know?
That is not true.
Because when we zoom out, we see a pattern. Obama's presidency wasn't just about policy, it was a masterclass in branding. The crisp suits, the adoring family, the Netflix deals that followed. It's the American dream packaged for maximum appeal. But the darker reading is that the image was curated with surgical precision, hiding every blemish. We're told insiders worked overtime to stomp out whispers of same-gender encounters, to bury gossip about private indulgences, to crush any suggestion that Michelle wasn't the picture-perfect first lady. Rumors of an affair with Jennifer Aniston may have been laughed off. But look at how quickly representatives, magazines, and even Aniston herself jumped in to deny it. The reflex is always the same: immediate, sweeping, absolute denial, as though one crack in the surface could shatter the whole portrait.
More fuel on the fire that there's a potential, maybe a divorce or some sort of rockiness going on in the Obamas' relationship. They both posted these mirrored, very choreographed Valentine's Day messages on X.
This obsession with optics wasn't confined to personal rumors. It stretched across the political landscape too. From intelligence reports on Russia to carefully choreographed press briefings, the accusation is that everything was built on the same principle: protect the image at any cost. That's what Rogan calls out when he shakes his head in disbelief, and what Vance hints at when he calls Obama a puppet. They're not just targeting his record, they're pointing at the machine behind him, the hidden hands sculpting his every move. And if those hands went as far as to manipulate intelligence, is it really such a stretch to think they'd also manipulate the narrative around his private life?
I mean, there's, not to add insult to injury, but there's a Daily Mail report out today saying Kamala Harris's marriage may be on the rocks. Like everybody's on the rocks. Again, I will say I love the Daily Mail, but the sourcing appeared weak. It was like people who know the couple, but like, I don't know if it's any better than that, but they're saying she's blaming him in part for her loss because he turned out to be such a hot mess liability. You buy it?
The timing of Michelle's absences from high-profile events only adds fuel to the fire. She skipped Jimmy Carter's funeral, she skipped Trump's inauguration. Each time, the explanations were thin and the speculation grew louder. Meghan McCain even claimed serious journalists were whispering that the Obamas lived separate lives. Then came the gossip covers screaming about Jennifer Aniston, the denials, the chuckles on late-night shows. If it's all nonsense, why does it keep coming back? Why does it take so much effort to squash?
She is not sorry.
They are looking forward. All the women in your life are looking forward.
All the women in my life are looking forward to being able to, live a more normal life.
But still not entirely normal. Obviously, everybody's under the microscope at all times. A little bit more. And you're staying in Washington, D.C., which is unusual for an exiting president.
The answer, some argue, lies in the art of control. Obama's brand depends on perfection: the loving husband, the loyal wife, the visionary leader. It's a house of cards that can't afford to wobble, which is why any narrative that even hints at a double life, whether it's Joan Rivers' incendiary comment, Larry Sinclair's story about a late-night encounter, or a Hollywood rumor involving Aniston, has to be smothered instantly. It's not about whether the claims are true, it's about the danger of letting them breathe. The most persistent of those whispers has become known online as the homosexual president theory, a narrative that has traveled from late-night blogs to viral social media feeds with astonishing speed. It began in the late 2000s, when fringe figures like Larry Sinclair surfaced with lurid claims of encounters during Obama's years as a state senator. Though Sinclair's credibility was shredded by a failed lie detector test and an arrest at one of his press conferences, the story refused to fade away. Instead, it found new oxygen each time Obama's public image seemed too polished, too perfect, feeding a hunger for the idea that something darker had been hidden beneath the surface.
And for me, going high is not losing the urgency or the passion or the rage, especially when you are justified in it. Going high means finding the purpose in your rage. Rage without reason, without a plan, without direction is just more rage.
The theory gained its most infamous push when Joan Rivers casually tossed her grenade into the cultural conversation, calling Obama homosexual and suggesting Michelle was not who the world thought she was. Even though her delivery was wrapped in comedy, the remarks hit a nerve and ricocheted across tabloids, gossip blogs, and YouTube channels. The internet, already primed to see cracks in the carefully staged family man portrait, turned Rivers' offhand remark into proof that insiders had always known. For conspiracy culture, it was less about evidence and more about validation from someone with a global platform. As the years went on, the rumor mutated into countless forms. Message boards stitched together old letters, obscure interviews, and grainy photos to craft elaborate timelines. Videos with millions of views spliced together clips of Obama with Sinclair's claims, alongside Rivers' comments, creating a tapestry that looked convincing to anyone already suspicious. Each new iteration of the theory built on the last, and soon the story wasn't just about Obama. It was about the belief that the mainstream press was too terrified or too complicit to touch it. That notion of suppression gave the theory its fuel, transforming gossip into what looked like forbidden knowledge. What makes this theory so sticky isn't just the content. It's the psychology behind it. People are drawn to the idea that the most powerful figures are hiding their true selves because it gives them a sense of secret insight, of seeing past the stage lights to the raw, backstage chaos. In Obama's case, the disconnect between his flawless public persona and the messiness implied by the rumors created an irresistible tension. The more his team projected stability, loyalty, and perfection, the more some viewers became convinced it was a mask. For them, believing the rumor became an act of resistance, a way of rejecting what they saw as carefully managed propaganda.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just like, it's there. I mean, it's not just there. It's everywhere. My news feed is dominated by it. Fox News, CNN, everyone. There's raids at Diddy's house. Who is...
By now, the homosexual president theory has outgrown the particulars of Sinclair or Rivers. It has become a cultural symbol, shorthand for how internet rumor can outpace fact, how whispers become movements, and how perception can reshape history. Whether anyone truly believes the claims almost doesn't matter anymore. The story has become part of the mythology surrounding Obama, etched into the online ecosystem forever. And with Rogan and Vance now tearing at the edges of that mythology, the question isn't whether the rumor will fade, but how many more people will start wondering if the most beloved image of modern politics was just another performance. And this brings us back to the power of Rogan and Vance's takedown. By saying the quiet part out loud, by connecting dots others are too scared to trace, they're cutting through the protective wall that has surrounded Obama for more than a decade. Suddenly, the questions sound less like fringe chatter and more like urgent investigations. Did Joan Rivers really stumble into a fatal accident? Or was her sudden collapse a warning to anyone bold enough to cross the line? Did Obama's advisors suppress inconvenient stories because they were false or because they were too close to the truth? And if the image we've all been sold is fake, what else has been fabricated? That's the knife's edge where this story now rests. If Rogan and Vance are even half right, then the American public has been living inside a staged performance. If the whispers about Joan Rivers, about secret romances, about a presidency run by puppet masters hold any weight, then history itself has been rewritten before our eyes. So we ask you, what do you believe? Was Joan Rivers a comedian who paid the ultimate price for speaking too freely? Or was she a truth teller, silenced before she could expose what was really going on? Drop your thoughts below, because this is one story that won't vanish quietly. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and never stop asking the questions they don't want answered.